Welcome to the Education, Career, and Beyond podcast. We've combined life experience with young adult drive and ambition. Are you just starting to college plan? Did you finish your education and wonder, now what? Join us in this lively discussion about the topics you need to know to create the next stage of your life's dreams, careers, finances, education, and more. Brought to you by Voice for Heroes 501c3. Welcome, everybody, and especially welcome back, Ed. If you follow this show, you know he hasn't been able to be with us for the last few episodes, but Capri and I think we handle it pretty well. But we are very happy to have him back. This is the Education, Career, and Beyond podcast, and today's topic is going to be so much fun because we are going to be discussing book publishing, which I'm a huge fan of. We're going to be talking about audiobooks, which is so massive, and AI, and we have an incredible guest with us that's an expert in this field that has a lot of insight to share about this topic for careers and also ways we can implement this into things we're doing today. Becky Parker-Geist, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
Welcome back, Ed.
Thank you. I heard I wasn't needed, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be here. The raving reviews from you two ladies hosting things. I had to get back, otherwise I thought I was going to get booted permanently. So I'm glad.
Yeah, you were like this close.
Right, our viewership went up, our views went up. Our reviews went up. I know it's okay.
Believe it.
A little more training will get you there, Ed. Capri, thank you for being with us as always at the university when you're trying to work your school schedule and your classes and you're still dedicated to us. We appreciate it so much.
Of course. Glad to be here as always.
Well, Becky has graced us with her time on vacation. So that's why you can see, if you're watching this, you see she's in the car with us. She took time on vacation. Becky, I know you have a huge background in theater. You're an expert when it comes to publishing and audiobooks. Let's talk about your background. Just briefly share with us how that led up to your expertise.
Sure. Well, I always had a great passion for theater while I was in school, high school, and really from when I was a little kid. And so I decided to, with the encouragement of my parents, who always told me to follow my dreams, I pursued a degree in theater. I went on to get my master's in acting. And one of my first jobs out of grad school was doing talking books for the blind. This was in the early 80s when the whole audiobook landscape was very, very different. But wow, I just fell in love with recording audiobooks. And I feel so incredibly grateful that I have been able to, really step into audiobook production as my career. So yeah, there's been a lot of different milestones on that journey. But it's a great place to be.
Well, we're going to pick your brain on that today. I know Capri probably already came in with some questions.
Well, I think I'm going to give Ed a chance to start today because he hadn't had a chance in a minute to interview our guests.
Who, me?
Yes.
That's very gracious of you, Capri. Becky, I'm fascinated, like Amy said, about the path that got you where you're at today. We work with a lot of young people. And I before we get into the audiobook stuff, which I found fascinating, I was wondering if you might comment, because you said that you were empowered by your parents to do that stuff. I work with a lot of young people who are creative. We'll talk about the writing side, but I'm curious, from your expertise, and you've been down the road, how would you encourage a young person who's interested in performing arts to go into that, even if it's like a hobby? Like, how did you develop that once you got started? Can you just speak on that for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, and I had my own part of my journey where I thought, oh my gosh, I have to do something else to earn money so that I can do what I love.
Yeah.
So it was really, there was a major turning point for me in 2013, but leading up to that, let me give you just a little bit of that in between time from the time I graduated from grad school, and I was doing theater. I have always done theater because it is like breathing. You don't want to stop. And yeah, but a lot of it was just sort of hobby level, but I was really committed as well to doing professional level work and working with professionals. And so it's really about when you're committed to something and you just know that that's what you're supposed to be doing, then you just keep walking forward one step at a time and you find your way. And sometimes that might need a side job, but for a while, but staying focused has been huge. It was in 2013 was when I was coming to this point where I had been trying to do another thing that, it was good. It's something I believed in, but it wasn't my passion. It wasn't my gift. And I was in this networking training class, and we were talking about the different different organizations, different networks that we were each part of. And so the trainer was asking about the networks that I'm part of. And then I got to this point where I said, oh, and I'm also, a member of BAPA, which is Bay Area Independent Publishers Association, for this, my other job, the other work that I do. And he said, whoa, 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 what other work? And so I started telling him about my voiceover work. And he said, Becky, you have got to stop what you're doing and do what you were, this voiceover, because when you talk about that, you light up.
Yeah.
I've known you for months now, and I've never seen you light up the way you do when you talk about that. So that's what you need to do. Stop doing the other stuff. Focus on that. And I trusted him, and I took that step, and I have never looked back. It's been fantastic.
I like that. The theme there was, if you're passionate about it, even if it's not right there at the forefront, keep pursuing it. By the way, interestingly enough, Becky, my wife says I should be doing voiceover. I don't know if that means I'm ugly and I shouldn't be on the screen, or I should be doing stuff. How does one get into that business? Either that or hand model. One of those two I'm good with.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of different types of voiceover. We're focused mostly on the audiobook voiceover, which is a long form. You have to be skilled at doing, recording over a long period of time. And, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but it's important to also take breaks. But to be able to do that, takes a lot of stamina and a different version of the skills that are needed. If you're going into other kinds of voiceover work, maybe video games or commercials, it's a whole different thing, because you're going for a different tone and different time frame. So when I was starting out, when he said that, and I said, okay, I'm going to just do voiceover, it took me a little while to figure out which area I wanted to be in. I had fallen in love with audiobooks, many years before that. And then I had 3 daughters and was busy being a mom. And it was over those first couple years that I came to the conclusion, no, I really want to do audiobooks. And that's when I started looking for, well, where are the authors hanging out in my neighborhood, and just starting to connect there. And then I started to get my first work, and I started to learn more about that aspect of the industry from a producing and side of things.
That's really good information, because I think there's that just proves as another outlet for somebody who's maybe got energy and animated. Maybe they're not getting the acting stuff, but they can pursue a parallel path. Thank you for answering those questions. I have a few more, but I want to let the other gals get in here and ask some questions. So I'm going to hand it back to Capri, time permitting. I got a couple other questions, but thank you for answering those two for me.
Sure, yeah.
Awesome. You started to touch a little bit on the production of audiobooks. Can you talk about a little bit more about that? Because I love listening to them. So I want to know everything that goes into making them.
Yeah. There's, it's interesting is we have many authors that come to us, for audiobook production, and sometimes they'll want to narrate their own audiobooks, and they really have no idea just how much goes into the overall process. So probably the piece that most people think of is somebody sitting in front of a microphone, in a sound booth and reading. but there's so much more to it. So first of all, I talked a little bit about that sort of long form, being able to be consistent with your overall tone, maintaining energy and excitement in the reading so that you're not just reading words, because you're going to bore somebody real quickly if that's all you're doing. A lot of it, and the best voiceover talent are trained actors. Because they understand that you're really stepping into, if you're doing fiction, you're acting that dialogue, and you're going back and forth often, between multiple characters, and you need to keep all those voices consistent and distinct. So that takes a set of skills. And then there's all the post-production. So when you're narrating, there are going to be lots of times when you stumble. That's just part of it. It's okay. But learning how to do the technical side of things, both for the recording at all, but then also how to do what we call punch and roll, which is you back up that little bit and then you come back in where you messed up, And mastering is another whole like audio engineer part of it. And there are lots and lots of people who are just focused on that sound production, the engineering aspect of it. So they're listening to the audiobooks. They're making sure any little sounds that shouldn't be there are out. If something needs to be re-recorded, they're making notes for the actor, narrator. And then you've got the whole client review process, and they're making requests for changes. And then there's the getting it out into the world, So once you have all those audio files, knowing how, like, what kinds of files and what the requirements are, technical specifications, and then how to get it out into the world in the biggest and best way, so that then the author or publisher can start marketing it.
That's great. I didn't know there were so many different parts to that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. So Becky, I'm a recording artist as well, and I've done voiceover work corporate. Now, I've never done an entire book. I've done larger scripts and different work like that, and I have thought about, gosh, could I do an audiobook? Would I do even my own book? Would I do it audio? And I can feel what you're saying about that patience and the ability to keep that energy, to make sure that you're staying the same in your tones and your influxes. How long do you give yourself? Let's say it's a 250-page book per se, or how do you even say, okay, I'm going to give myself X amount of weeks, X amount of days? Are there deadlines that are just unrealistic? How do you really map that out, knowing you're going to deliver that quality product from start to finish?
Right. Well, so there are many different factors. One is if it's a professional narrator who knows how much they can record in any one session, in any one day, that is one factor. If it's somebody who is maybe a new audiobook narrator, an author who is narrating, they need to leave themselves a lot more time and have much shorter sessions. And then there's how efficient is the actor in the studio. Again, with somebody who's very new in the industry, you're going to assume that it's going to take them a lot more time to get a finished hour or a finished minute. So that is a really common term in our industry, is a finished hour. And basically all it means is, it might have taken you 10 hours start to finish to get that one finished hour done, and you get paid on the one finished hour, right? Whereas you're developing your skills, you're trying to become efficient in the studio. Maybe it takes you an hour and a half to get that 1 hour done. Now, the same, those people might be earning exactly the same per finished hour. So you can very quickly see how learning, developing your skills makes a huge difference in your overall, what you get paid.
Yeah. Makes sense.
How long would you typically say that it takes to make a finished hour, if just like a standard professional?
Right. So I'm pretty efficient in the studio, and I can usually do about an hour and a half per finished hour.
Crazy.
But I think pretty typical is 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, for someone who's been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
How competitive is this space now? Because with today's technology, so many more people are jumping in to do voiceovers, wanting to get into that. I noticed there are a lot of platforms that you can try to get into voiceover work like that, but it's saturated. How have you been able to divide those professionals and those platforms to say this is a career somebody could have if they wanted to put in that time, work, and talent? Or
Yeah.
is it so competitive now that it's more difficult than it was before?
Well, it is very competitive, and still, there is always room for great storytellers. So when you have a passion and you know that this is what you want to do, I absolutely encourage you to go for it. There are some easy ways to get started, to just get some experience. You won't get paid much for it, but it's great training and will get your voice out there. And the platform that most people know about in terms of producing audiobooks is ACX. It's a division of Amazon. I only recommend it for those people who are just getting started and want to do some royalty share um, projects, because it's good for that. It's good for training. Beyond that, there are way too many voices on there. Most of them are not great. And early on, when we were getting started, we would comb through those voices. Just you can tell pretty quickly. 10 seconds, you can usually know if someone's a decent narrator or not.
Yes.
And just trying to find the ones that we wanted to invite to apply for our talent bank. But there are now many audiobook producers, and you can audition for publishers, for producers like Pro Audio Voices. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think we had both a growth in both the number of people trying to get into voiceover and also the number of projects for audiobooks. Both grew during the pandemic. And I think it's still growing. Certainly the audiobook industry is growing. And so, yeah, just keep working those skills. Read out loud. If you have younger siblings that are willing to listen to have you read to them, go for it. If you have children, read to them. If you have a spouse, read to anybody, or read to yourself if you need to. But reading out loud and just getting used to that and having fun with it is a great sort of training program that doesn't cost you anything.
Becky, I could make you laugh when I was doing corporate voiceover and they would send me a script and I would email back and say, whoever wrote this did not even take the time to read it out loud because this is not possible as a voiceover.
Yeah.
They didn't write it with that in mind. And I always, even working with my private clients in speaking coaching, I encourage them to read everything out loud, see how this feels, to hear your voice, how it announces. If somebody's writing their bio or their introduction, read it out loud. If somebody was to read this for you, what does it sound like? And I love that you brought up the reading out loud, because I believe that's such a powerful way for us to learn our own voices and also see how things really play out in real life when we hear it audibly.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You want to talk about the publishing space a little bit right now, as far as what it looks like today? A lot of authors out there, a lot of self-publishing. What are you noticing in the publishing world today?
Yeah. The indie publishing world has definitely grown. And I've been president of Bay Area Independent Publishers Association, BAPA, for about 10 years now. And over those 10 years, we'll have experts come in and talk to us about what's happening, what's trending, and how that crossover line between like the big 5 publishers and indie publishing has been really interesting to watch, to where the last that I heard, they were about even. Maybe indie publishing was starting to exceed traditional publishing.
Wow.
The interesting thing, and what really makes a huge difference, is to be able to have a high quality indie publishing. So as in so many things, I highly recommend if you're going to publish your own book, get into some organization like BEPA, or or meet with other authors who are doing that and have experience with it, and learn, sort of be mentored in that process, because there's a lot of detail and a lot of things that it gets very confusing. There are many different platforms and best practices, and BEPA has been a tremendous resource for me, as I'm also an author. So when I first published, it was before I knew anything at all, and I just kind of did it. And after I learned all the ways, so much through BEPA, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't do any of those things. I should go back and redo it. And I haven't gotten back to it yet, because it wasn't, sort of like a good stepping stone, a first step. But there's a lot to learn, and just getting some mentorship in that area is so valuable. I think mentorship in any area that you are interested in and pursuing is incredibly valuable. Learn from the people who have done it before.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Fantastic. All right, so Becky, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
You've heard all three of us talk. Who do you think's got the best voice for voiceover in
That's not fair,
audiobooks?
Ed.
I didn't say it was fair. I said I'm going to put her on the spot.
You're going to have to send in your audition tape so I can
see which one of us gets it to you fastest. I'll tell you who.
Well, yeah, Amy's going to win.
I just have to sit here and push a button, and you'll have it in 10 minutes.
But it does bring up another thing. So I talked a lot about the value of really good storytelling, and I think of that as like the main thing. But if you don't have a good audio quality, like I would never record an audiobook in a car.
Oh, gosh, no.
If you don't have a good audio quality, either because you're using a bad mic, or your sound, you have people picking up, or dogs barking, leaf blowers, whatever, consistently in your neighborhood, that's going to be a problem, and so you have to find your space and fix your space and make sure you've got good equipment so that you can deliver high quality audio, or you just won't get any work. And you might be a fantastic storyteller and still not get any work because of that.
My Focusrite is sitting right here.
Your what, Amy? What's it called?
My Focusrite converter that goes into my Shure microphone and my pop filter. It's all right here. You just can't see it.
Well, I don't have any of that. So, Becky, quick little list of things that people should get. Either they're on podcasts like this or doing voiceover. You have a short list for somebody, 2 or 3 things they should absolutely have?
Well, you're definitely going to need a quality microphone that is not a USB mic, but has an XLR, and it has an audio interface, which is a little box that the audio is going to go through from your computer, or through your mic, from your mic to the interface to your computer.
Are you going to start singing for us? Are you taking over now to prove to Becky that you're better than Capri and me?
I was just modeling what she was referring to. I was giving
I see what's happening here. Capri, you see what's going on? I come back
see
one time
and
she's definitely in control. She's taking over.
No, Amy runs the show. Let's be real.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Becky, I know we're running up on time. I just had a couple questions that I didn't quite understand. You alluded to it in some of your answers. One of them is, for an aspiring writer, again back to young people who have a story to tell, what impact is the audio book? Can an audio recording of the book have to the overall growth of an author's writing?
Yeah. These days, I'm actually happy to say that having an audiobook is really critical for most books. Now, not every book. We're not going to read a dictionary onto the audio, But, most books these days are going to really benefit from having an audiobook because there are many, many, and a growing number of people who only do audiobooks.
Yeah.
We're driving, we're working, we're doing stuff, and we want to keep taking it all in. And so audiobooks are a great way to do that. In addition to the fact that audiobooks add a whole other layer of performance
Yeah.
to the book that is really awesome as long as it's well done. I would say don't ever do an audiobook poorly. It better not to do it at all. But a well done audiobook is really going to serve you as an author. And there are many ways to get that done. So it's smart to have an audiobook. Yeah.
One last question. I'll give it to Capri, and she can ask a few. At what point does a person take an English audiobook and consider putting into Spanish?
At what
Ooh.
point, when you believe that you have a Spanish audience, or could have a Spanish audience that you think is really going to want that content?
Yeah.
I would say that's the point. And translation has become, translation is one thing where, it needs to be done well. And there are a lot of like translation AI kinds of things that are not going to get you a well done, finished audiobook. But there are translators where like that can be one step in your process. So that first piece is, getting the script done in Spanish because it still needs to be narrated. Getting a Spanish audiobook narration done is often less expensive than doing an English version.
Oh, really? Because I was doing an audio thing for education, admissions, and financial aid,
Yeah.
and someone in the school district said we have a lot of Spanish-speaking parents. You should translate it into Spanish, and I was blown away about what it costs to just do one 60-minute deal in Spanish. So I'll have to revisit that with you at a later date because it was a chunk of dough, a
Yeah.
big chunk of dough.
Yep. Yeah, we can talk about that.
All right, Capri, take it away. Answer your questions. Let's get her out of here. Poor thing's on vacation.
I just have one more question that kind of came up when we were talking. Is there a lot of crossover between people who podcast and people who record audiobooks?
I don't think there is a lot of crossover. There is some crossover.
For sure.
And some authors who, especially nonfiction authors who, run a podcast, if they're going to do an audiobook, they will typically want to narrate their own audiobook.
Yeah.
Not always, but sometimes. But they're quite different in terms of a lot of different things. So many different things. They're almost like they related. I think they probably seem like they're more related than they actually are because there's so many things that are really different about them. Everything from the production through to the distribution. Yeah.
That was a good question. I had a similar question. I was curious about, do podcasters take a handful of episodes, try to create a book out of that, and then take that to the next level and try to produce their show into a book. So I was
There you go, Ed. Are we doing that?
We
We're going to
could.
take more episodes and put them right into a book?
I'm lazy, so I don't want to write something. So what I did before is I recorded a whole bunch of stuff, and Becky, I used AI to not translate it, but to transcribe it. And then I just put it in order, and I was like, here's a book. I didn't know, I wasn't self-publishing, and I pulled the plug on that, but that's how I did it. I was like, instead of me just typing it, I'm just going to talk about it, and had a handful of questions I wanted to answer. And we started down the path. I had a bunch of it ready to go, but even that was pretty pricey. It was a big chunk of dough to get that done. Maybe, we can talk another time about, somebody who doesn't have that type of budget and wants to do it, what the path might be. Because I think there are folks out there that have stories to tell, and how they go about doing that without big publishers and big budgets would be a cool thing. So maybe we can have you back on to talk about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And it doesn't have to take a lot of money to be able to do that kind of process. So
Oh, neat.
some different options available. Yeah.
So I don't know, Capri, you want me to wrap this up, see if I still got the gift, or you want to take it away?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a gift, but you can give it a shot.
Let me see if I can do it.
Becky,
Well,
was
If
she?
it's
Yes.
yeah, I would love to just like share, for your audience, just share just something really quick about my journey that might be really helpful to them. And that is, I started out as when I started my business, my official, yes, I'm stepping into this, Pro Audio Voices. I was a solopreneur. I was working on my own, doing all the things, wearing all the hats, and I was working a lot of hours, and I was really kind of wearing myself out. And it wasn't until I got a mentor who started, I started working with him, and my life started to shift. And I now have we have 3 employees, including me. We have several on our core team. So we have contractors, vendors who are all over the world. And we have clients all over the world and narrators all over the world, over 500 narrators in our talent bank. So we have grown so much. And we've recently been able to launch AMPlify audiobooks, which is a game-changing platform for authors. And all of this has been possible because of mentorship and working together with team who can each do their expertise to the best that they can.
that's amazing. Before we get out of here, Becky, where do they find you if they're interested in working with your team? How do they get a hold of you?
proaudiovoices.com is our website.
I'm
And
putting it in the chat right now for everybody, and it'll be in the show notes wherever you are enjoying this podcast.
Perfect.
it's easy to contact us from the website. So, yeah.
And you're in Northern California? Is that where you're out of? I missed that part at the beginning. Where are you out of?
Used to be, I was there for many, many years. I'm now in the Portland, Oregon area.
Awesome. All right, that's the show. Becky, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing.
you.
I know there's a part of our audience like Capri and I that were curious about that. Amy kind of knows a little bit more than us, and some young people always trying to get their creativity out. You've given them an opportunity to show how it can be done. Like I said, we'll have you back on to talk about the process. It was a pleasure having you with us today. And you know what? That's the podcast, Education, Careers, and Beyond. On behalf of our guests, Becky and Amy and Capri, my name is Ed. And as usual, if you got some interest out of this, give us a thumbs up or you liked what was talked about. If you know somebody who wants to get in that side of the business, share it with them. And we do a podcast almost every week. At least I do one almost every week. So when I'm not feeling well, I usually miss like 8. So I'm glad to be back. But listen, subscribe because we're always trying to find ways to inspire people in different career paths. And if that's something you're interested in, go back and listen to a couple of our episodes. We do really good work. So on behalf of the team, we thank you for being with us today, and we'll see you